Now there are various types of indexes in MongoDB. The first one is the default index that gets created by by default. Whenever you create a collection, MongoDB creates a default index for it on the field _id, and that field key is reserved by MongoDB document schema. So this index is an ascending index on _id field, and it is always there, and you cannot delete this index. Even if you try to drop all the indexes on your collection, this index will still be there. So let's see. If I do get index on my listing, you will see that there is a first index, which is the default index, which is created by MongoDB. Now even though I do drop indexes, it didn't allow me to delete this index. The next index is a single field index. This index is what we have seen so far throughout all our examples. This is the index when you use a single key to set an index on. The another type of index is the compound index. In this type of index, you can use a combination of keys to create an index on them. This is almost like a composite key in traditional RDBMS. So this is an example of a compound index where you can specify two different keys, one with ascending order and another with descending order. Now there is a catch with compound index. Your queries has to match both the fields, and then only it's gonna use that compound index. Now let me explain what I'm talking about. Let's create an index for our movies collection over here. So let me clear this. So let's say I create the index on my movies. With release year and average rating Okay, it has created an index. Now let me insert some of the records in my movies collection. With average rating, let's say 4. Then few more collect records. Predator with average rating 3.5 and release year will be, let's say, 1997. So this is how my movies collection will look like. With certain fields which have release year, certain fields which does not have release year, and with average rating. Cool. Now what's gonna happen if I try to find records with only average rating? So let's say I want to find records which have more rating than 3.3. So I'll do db.find where average rating is greater than 3. Now I have two such records, one with movie Aliens and one is Predator. It found two records, but let's explain on this query. So you can see that although I have created an compound index for year and rating, it did not use that index. That means MongoDB needs both the fields specified in the compound index to be part of the query, and then only it will be able to use that index for sorting. So in this query, if I use year as well, you can see that here it used arbitrary cursor for release year by rating and it found one record, because now we have specified both of the keys which are part of the compound index. But interesting enough, if I only use year, what's gonna happen? You can see that it used the release year cursor, which is only for year, to find this record. Now let me delete this particular cursor, this particular index. So let me drop this index, which is only on year. And now what's gonna happen? This time it used the compound index. How come? What is going wrong? This tells us that if MongoDB finds the query keys at the beginning of the compound index, it will allow you to use the compound index, because that's how it is sorted. That means all the records in your MongoDB, they are first sorted by the first key, and then inside each key they are being sorted by the second key, and that's why we were able to use the index to find the records from the first key, which is in our case the year. But you can force the MongoDB to use certain index by specifying a hint option. For example, let's say I want to find records by average rating. I don't specify year here, but I only use hint to tell it to use a certain index. So I'm gonna ask it to use that index. Oops. Okay, let's find all the records which have average rating greater than 3, and I want to hint MongoDB to use index on year. Again, there seems to be an error which says bad hint. So I cannot use index hint like this. Let's see why this is happening. Because in the hint I have to use the index name itself. So the index is for year and average rating. And now MongoDB will be able to use this index to find that record. Although we can see here that it scanned only 2 objects among the 6 objects. Let's clear this as well. So this is how you can use hint in MongoDB. Another type of index is multi-key index. This type of indexes are mostly used on values are mostly used on keys where values are of type array. So let me explain what is this. So by default, this kind of index is by default understood by MongoDB. Let's say if we have a movie collection over here and we add cast into the movies. So I'll say db dot movies dot insert. Let me insert another record, title. Let's say the title is 2012, or let me add matrix revolution with cast, which is of type array. With cast as Keanu Reeves. Let me call them Neo, Morpheus, Trinity. Right. Let me insert another record. Men in Black with Will Smith. And Tommy Lee Jones. Okay, and what will happen if I add index on cast? Or I would rather say, if I don't add index on cast and ask it to look for a certain document with cast where there is a new in it. So let's do that. Movies dot find where cast includes new, or let's say Jones. And let me to explain on this. So you will see that it scanned through 9 objects. And it did not find any of the record matching that criteria, and it used basic recursor. Now you are going to say it might be the case because our movies collection has 9 records, correct? But now what's gonna happen if I use index for cast? So let me create index on cast. Ensure index. So index has been created, and let's try to fire the same query again. Interesting. Now it did not scan any object because it could not find any key matching in the index created for cast. Here what it did is, if your value field is of type array, then it's gonna treat each of the field in that array as a key for the index, and it's gonna create its binary tree with that information. That means here you can see that it only scanned one object with matching Bill Smith name field. It did not go through two documents here which have cast in it, but because it was able to extract out all the individual elements from the array and create a binary tree for it, it only needed to parse one object in that index. Got it? And this is done by MongoDB by default. It will understand if the key is of type array, it's going to create a multi-key index.